Okay, Scott here again with Scott's Thoroughbred Restorations, and this is part 2 of the 64.5 Mustang sending unit, fuel sending unit. And I've had some time to get through this thing and clean up these parts a little bit. I took a old toothbrush and got it inside of this little housing here and cleaned all of that rust deposit dust out of there and blew it out with some compressed air. And then I used a little bit of 1500 grit sandpaper, very, very gently in here, and cleaned the varnish and some of the deposits off of those tiny wires in there. You want to always, when you go about doing this, you want to make sure that you are going in the direction of the windings, of those wire windings on there. If you don't, you will end up breaking them and they will no longer work. So you always want to go this direction with it. So very gently, only takes a couple of passes. And then what I did is I took a little bit of Tarnex and I put it on a Q-tip, and I went through and did the same thing with the Q-tip. Kind of doing this kind of thing this way. After you do that, you want to make sure that you then rinse it. You know, take the other end of the Q-tip, put a little bit of distilled water on it, and wipe away that Tarnex. You don't want that stuff to keep sitting on there and possibly doing some further damage to those windings. Once you've done that, then you want to go blow it out with compressed air again. Make sure that there isn't any foreign matter left in there, any of the pieces of the Q-tip or anything like that. And then you're about ready to move on to the next part, which is this little guy here, the little contact. And you can kind of see him on there. He's a little shiny little guy. And that's what's rubbing against the wires, as I said in the first video. Let's see if I can get this thing to focus on it. Yeah, right there. So you do essentially the same thing with that. A little bit of 1500 grit on that to get any varnish deposits off of it. And then I took again some Tarnex, put it on there, got it really nice and shiny. You can see some of the normal wear on this thing. It should be nice and shiny like that, so you get good contact. And then again, a little Tarnex, and then I rinsed it off and then blew everything off with the compressed air. I generally went around in this thing and I cleaned any loose material, loose rust or anything like that with a little miniature wire wheel on a Dremel, and got all that loose material off of there. Not trying to make this perfect. This isn't going to look like brand new or anything here, but it is going to be functional, and it is the original unit. Now on the outside here, on this part of it, we're going to try and make this look really good, and I'll show some more of that once we get to the third video. But and then I want to show this. This is the float. You want to inspect this really closely, because right here, particularly in this groove right here, where the this little hook attaches, the rust tends to build up in there, and you'll get little pinholes in this thing, and it will fill up with fuel and eventually won't work. So you really want to look closely. This one is in remarkably good shape. I'm going to reuse it again. I would rather take my chances with this original heavier unit, or heavier by the thickness of the brass here, than go get a Chinese-made reproduction or something that God only knows how long that'll last. So anyway, we'll put that back in there. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that do not, when you take this thing apart, do not lose this little washer here, because that goes right on the end of this. The end of this little pivot here. If you can see right there, that little pivot, that actually sits against a couple of little flanges that stick out here, little pinch points that hold it in place, and that is what runs against this side of the housing, on the inside of this housing. So you put it back on here, you want that on there. If that is not on there, this thing, those little flanges or those little wings that stick out on either side of that thing are eventually going to wear this hole too big, and you'll have a bunch of play in this, and this thing will be ruined, and you'll be looking for another one. So anyway, next step is going to be to put this all back together again, and we'll show that in the next video.